And now we're in this changing paradigm in society where we are understanding that we can change that system. We can take ownership of what we do through our decision making and through the relationships that we build and through the learning and understanding the world from different lenses.
Welcome to Heart of Change podcast, where we explore heroic and inspiring stories of change.
Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with someone who embodies the spirit of change and innovation, Manuela Rodriguez Correa. Manuela is Colombian-born, living in Berlin with a passion for energy healing, travel, culture, and language. Manuela is the founder of Twisted Connection, where she designs and facilitates learning and development programs for multicultural teams. Through her program, Manuela uncovers our underlying beliefs and changes paradigms to spur co-creation, growth, and social innovation in society. Her work in systems change fosters generative dialogues and disruptive collaboration methods, aiming to serve the well-being of the collective. In addition, Manuela is a Reiki practitioner, an energy healer, working to help others activate and heal their energy system. Manuela is changing the way we relate and create as human beings. I look forward to learning more about Manuela's journey and her insights into system change, energy, and the transformative power of disruption. Manuela, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It's great to have you here. We had a chance to speak briefly before you got here, and then again had a chance to connect in a really profound and meaningful way before we're sitting down here together. And it means a lot to have your energy here.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. And it also means a lot for me to be here. It's the first podcast I record, and I'm very happy this is happening with you. And I feel like ever since we had the first conversation, I feel we aligned. So I'm very happy to explore this with you.
Tell me about systems change. What drew you to step into that space?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I feel like systems change is getting stronger and stronger as a concept that more people working towards changing the world connect with. And I would say that from my perspective, from where I come from, I understand systems change as the movement or bringing new ways of living, new ways of understanding the world, but from a root place. So systems change can only happen if you really dig deeper into why are we here in the first place in terms of society, the problems that we're facing today. Systems change is not about sugarcoating or it's about putting patches to the problems. It's about really going into the intricacies of the problems that we face today because they are very complex and requires collective action. And only when we dare to see things to the eyes of what they really are and really the effect that they're bringing, we can really start thinking and experimenting and ideating of what needs to change so the results that we experience in society also are different.
What is, just so the audience can get a better understanding of what system change is, what is your personal definition of it?
Systems change is about creating action that brings different results. But that can sound very simple, but it's about action that is transformative. So doing things from a different place that we're used to doing it. So in able to do that, you need to understand the circumstances. So it's about creating different results by daring to think differently and daring to do things from a different perspective than it used to be. So it's kind of broad, but because there's so much that can go into it. So systems change to me is dig deep, do some critical thinking, understand the status quo, why things are how they are. And if you want to change them, then how can that exists can be understood from a different place and what actions need to happen for that to change.
When I think about system, I think about The Matrix, the movie. and changing a particular system or creating an organic awareness of what the reality of a system is. Is there a specific system that sort of drew you into this space?
I feel like I always, in my mind, learn to understand the world from a higher perspective, in the sense of like seeing the different components at play. Sometimes we have like a problem and we see like, oh, we have discrimination, let's say, and we have discrimination because we have people in power that are trying to do things but for their own benefit. But I was always looking at the broader understanding of like, yeah, but why the people in power are trying to do this? So basically system change for me was the wording of something that I was already doing. And I feel like the first system that I started changing was my own, and thinking about my family. I understand family as being a system. So when you have your core home and the people that are part of that core home, that is already a system, because there are like different parts that are part of what's coming alive in that home. What are the dynamics within that home? And very early in my career, or even in my life, I started experimenting and understanding that system of what my family was and how that had influenced my decisions of what did I want to study, what people did I surround myself with. So later on, I started reading about systems thinking and systems change. Like, this is what I've been doing all along, just understanding the dynamics at play of how we relate with one another and this interdependency that we have as human beings. And then why do we end up with certain circumstances in societal level, in our family level, in our relationships? Because everyone that is part of that system, every part member of that system influences what happens. So my own family and then my own system as my body, bodies are also systems. We have our nervous systems, which is very misunderstood or not fully understood. So learning about my own body and how my nervous system operated and how the things that activated in my system were leading me to make certain decisions, feel in a certain way. So you can go to the micro level and understand systems like that, or you can go to the macro level and see society, see the economic system, see the political system. The core of my work is understanding organizations as systems. So what are the different parts of this living organism? And I feel like every organism is alive as long as there are human beings in it. So you can call organizations a system that is an organic living system, or society, an organic living system as well. So human beings, we create systems. And it's on us to decide what are the results that system create in the reality that we live and experience every day.
It's looking at does the system create us, or do we create the system? How embedded does the energy from a system go into the core of who we are? And like, are we then sort of a victim of that energy? And not even knowingly, not a victim because we're sort of being attacked by the system per se, but just that we are influenced, as you were saying, on a very deep core level, but from like an energy perspective. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I love the question, because I think that's where the change of paradigm happens. I feel like paradigm is ways of being and acting, and like patterns of behaviors that we believe they're truth, and there's only way of doing it. And this is this change of paradigm that I feel we're right now, because as human beings, as a society, we have been led to believe that we have to conform and that we have to just accept or like follow what is already out there. As you're saying, like the system dictates the rules and we just have to follow them and conform most of the time to survive. And now we're in this changing paradigm in society where we are understanding that we can change that system. We can take ownership of what we do through our decision making and through the relationships that we build and through the learning and understanding the world from different lenses. So it's kind of like owning the courses of our lives. And in my own experience, I believe that connecting with energy is what makes it possible, because we can propose this new paradigm and it sounds amazing in words, and there's so many theories out there of how society could look like and how can we learn to live in a different way so we don't have to suffer so much. But the hard work is making it work. The hard part is to how do we get from envisioning this new way of living in society to actually building and experiencing this new society. And I believe that energy is the core, the key component that we have forgotten, and that we need to learn how to reconnect with that. And energy being our own energy as our human beings, or how we operate. Like, we live in a society that is struggling with burnout, and that we need to survive only by doing and doing and doing, so we can have money, so we can be someone, so we can get somewhere. And we need to understand that our energy is the most precious thing that we have. We need to learn how to care for it so we don't get sick and we don't really end up doing things that we don't really want to do. And that's more like in the personal level. But when we talk about the collective level, is like, how can we come together, people that really want to change the system, to use our energies, to use our creative forces to build that new reality. So a lot of what I do, especially with teams that are super passionate and motivated to bring social innovation because they have already envisioned what's possible in terms of doing something differently that is more constructive and can bring positive impact, is let's align, let's use our energies, our brains, our hearts, our bodies to align so we can actually make it happen. Because what it tends to happen, and it's very common, is that we are so desperate to create a different world that it's better, that we love to envision it and we love to create this, which is very important. There's different futures and there's different frameworks of how can that look like, but they all often fall short because there's no recipe on how to make it work. And I think like many of us that are working in this space of social innovation are trying to figure out, how do we move from the saying to the action to the new results?
I read somewhere that with systems change, you look at it like acupuncture. Mm-hmm. So you sort of go in at particular points and sort of stimulate those points, sort of as if the system is a body in itself. What are your thoughts on that?
I do believe that. As I mentioned before, I see systems, especially if they're human systems, as living organisms. And even nature, like we are so much right now reconnecting with nature because we have been so long disconnected with that, with the main essence of what this planet is, which is nature, Mother Earth, and how much we have disregarded all of the knowledge that is in nature already, and how indigenous people, they live because they understand the living organism that is Earth, and how it speaks, but not in words of human beings, but it speaks in different ways. It speaks through energy, through movement, through different ways and patterns of organizing that already have a very profound language that we had forgotten how to interpret. So I do believe that if we see doing systems change from this acupuncture perspective, we need to put needles in all of the body. We need to attend the different aspects of what the system is. And this is what it makes it already so hard, because the system as a whole is so complex and we need to try to understand it, but we cannot tackle everything at the same time. And this is why it needs to be a collective effort. Some people are tackling mental health and the public health system. Other people are tackling fossil fuels, renewable energies. Other people are tackling teamwork, like how do we interact as human beings so we can actually be constructive and not destructive in how we interact together. Other people might be tackling more deep research into quantum physics or like biology from a more profound and sophisticated way than before. Because we have been very limited in how we understand the world, the universe, as I mentioned, nature. So each one of these needles, it's teams or leaders tackling different parts of the system that need healing. We cannot all do it at the same time, but we can provide the enabling circumstances and the resources for that to happen. And this is where people that want to be part of the movement of systems change can ask themselves, where do I want to put my needle? Mm-hmm. Where do I want to put my action and my energy? Because there's so much to do.
Right. I think even just simply on the individual level, people going inside their internal core and having a relationship with that and creating some space and awareness around their own internal system is a great start. They always say, start at the micro level and it builds to the macro level. And if people are just getting more connected within their internal like energy self and connecting more to the earth around them, stepping out of this sort of brain heavy space, then it sort of leads like a path into those like greater social pieces or social awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I do believe that the first system that we need to tackle to change is our own system, personally speaking, and in terms of like how not only our bodies, but like our mental system, the patterns that we have operated from for so long, and the mindsets and the beliefs, because this is what have led us to this oppressive dynamics that we experience currently, and all of the destruction and the greed comes from an internal place of many people, leaders, people in power that have taken the lead, but we have conformed to that for different reasons. I'm not judging anybody. We all go through our personal life trying to make sense of how we conform to those norms and how can we be part of perpetrating what's wrong in the system. And I feel like we can only decide to choose a needle to attend to the healing of the system because we connect with ourselves first. And I feel like, for example, in terms of breakthrough, I think the pandemic was a huge event that happened collectively that forced all of us to go within, to go and to see ourselves of where were we at in terms of our lives and our development processes and how do we understand the world. Some people accepted that the invitation. Some people just look aside and it's fine. Everybody decides what they want to do. But I feel like, and I also say it not because of my experience, but because the people I surround myself with, there are many of them, if not most of them, have gone and are going through that inner journey of like, what is the role that I play? How my own experiences have led me to conform to the ways of doing things that are detrimental to the world, to the system, to nature, and is super uncomfortable. And then there is the only way, because if you start trying to save the world, but you don't understand how yourself are contributing to the old paradigm in the first place, there's going to be a massive contradiction of you pretending to do something, but at your core, you believe something differently. So if you want to work towards ending discrimination in the world, what part within yourself, what belief within yourself, what emotions and experiences within yourself have experienced discrimination in the first place? Or what ways of being, of acting or talking, speaking are contributing for that discrimination to still happen? So I feel these social movements are beautiful, of people going to the streets and speaking up and fighting for their rights. This is much needed. But if we only do that and we don't understand at the core of who we are, of what of those oppressive dynamics I have within myself, I feel we're just going to keep fighting and burning out in the process, because not real change is it's going to come to life.
It's, as you mentioned before, sort of putting Band-Aids on things, being very reactive instead of taking that time to go inward and have that space to be quiet. It's, of course, it's a theory, but I always thought that the pandemic with the masks was a chance for us to be quiet and be with ourselves, and that isolation was really important. Of course, this is just my own personal opinion, but definitely was for me. I knew that there was a major shift happening in that, and it was a disruptor per se. And I know that you study and you work on disruptors a lot in your work. Can you dive into that a little more for us?
Yes, I would love to. And I want to start by saying that we shouldn't be afraid about the word disruption, because one of the things that I've noticed is that people get scared when you say, like, I want to create a disruption, or I am a disruptive being. Is like,
or they feel like a rebel.
Yeah, exactly. It is associated with, because it has been in the past, like it is associated with rebellion of like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to leave a mess because I just want to scream because I am done with the status quo. And that can be a way of disrupting the system for sure. But if we go into the core of the pureness of the definition of what disruption is changing the patterns, is creating a stop of how things have been done in the past. And you, from your expression of who you are in your authentic self, you can decide, how do you want to be disruptive? So how do you want to be part of a change that required stopping the way how things have been done so far? That is as simple as it can be. And that could go from a place of like, I'm going to stop silencing myself. I'm going to disrupt the system because I'm going to start speaking up. I'm going to raise my voice, and I'm going to start in the meeting room with my team, in my organization. I'm going to start from a place of respect. I'm going to start speaking up, and I'm not going to conform with the decisions that have been made because I don't agree with them. At least I'm going to present my opinion. That could be already a level of disruption. Or you can go even further, and I admire so much the people that do this, is like queer or transgender people that they go in the streets and they wear and they dress up however their spirit and their essence is, knowing that they are being targeted and that they are is already a threat to their lives to go to the street like that, but they're disrupting the system because they're daring to be who they are. Another way of disrupting is connecting with energies, and you can go deep into meditation, and you can start acknowledging how energy is everything, and you can start speaking up about the importance of understanding your energy, cleaning your energy, sensing energy. And people are not used to that conversations, but you are creating a new level of awareness. So I'm giving these different examples because I feel that that's also part of changing paradigms, like redefining what things mean to you. As long as you're willing to bring about change, from what place do you want to bring about change? And I feel like for myself, I feel that the more that I've been through this personal development and connected more with my purpose, I've realized that I've been a disruptor my whole life. And I love to be disruptive. And I have experienced being disruptive in very simple ways, of like speaking up in the classroom when I was in high school, telling like bully professors, like, no, you're not gonna take off my grade just because I'm not behaving how I'm supposed to behave. I did my homework. You better give me that grade. And I also have disruptive in the sense of like, who am I as a woman? I come from a very macho-oriented, very patriarchal society in Colombia and Latin America. And I had to learn to be a woman in a different way because I didn't want to get any plastic surgery or change how I looked physically. And I didn't want to be defined by the relationship I had with men, if I got married or not. And to me, that's already, for me, have been a way of disrupting the system, from a place of me disrupting myself as well, because I was learning that I was starting to act from a place of conditioning or what was expecting from me in society. And it's like, no, I don't want this. and it's hard, and it can be painful because people might not understand it. Maybe perhaps that's why I ended up in Berlin, very far away from Colombia. But I decided not to conform. I want to do something different because I don't feel that it's in alignment with who I am. I want to explore more of who I can be and what I can do.
Yeah, I took a class in college, and it was Deviance in Society because I was a sociology major. So every student had to do something that was like deviant or off the cuff. And so I wore my clothes backwards for a day, which was really interesting just to see what people thought about, I had my shirt on backwards, my jeans were on backwards, and I had to act very normal, So it was fun too, but it was interesting to see. And then conformity is such a big piece of society. We get into these systems and the energy within that system, and it sort of infiltrates us. And, we follow the crowd rather than stepping into that authentic self. So I think it is good to do a check-in with ourselves and say, is this really who I am? We move so fast, we don't even take that time to go inward and just even take one moment to ask that question.
Yeah. And I feel it's important also to clarify or to honor the fact that it's not easy to go inward. And that probably is the main reason why we don't do it. It's a lot of resistance to go there because, of course, it's about looking into what you really are. And the things that have been present in your system that have been leading the way of your decision making. So if you're stuck in your life and you are tired of doing things the same way that you have been doing it for a while because you don't feel fulfilled, because you feel that there's more to life, that's going to push you or invite you in a very strong way to go within. And then you're going to start to see some of the shadow and some of the things and the hurt that were taking over your decisions.
Yeah, I meant to ask you about that because it's one thing to sort of choose to be a disruptor, but what happens when you're broken open, when you don't go within or you don't want to face certain things and you're forced to face them? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel that there's a big contradiction on that experience because on the one hand, you feel that you're being forced externally, like life circumstances brought you to the edge and you had to break open. And at the same time, I feel this was already orchestrated by yourself and your soul, if you want to understand it in that way. So I feel like we in society think that we don't have the capacity to choose. This is one of the programs that we have led to believe that we just need to do things that we're being told to. And I don't believe that's right. I do believe that the environment and the circumstances of society are in a certain way that we cannot necessarily change, but we can decide what to do with those circumstances. And I think this is the moments of when we have hard experiences where we break open, and we decide what to do with that in the sense of, am I going to continue to break open and explore that openness, what life is bringing me that can change the path that I've been going through? Or I'm just going to sit here and probably fall into depression and just disregard everything that's been happening because it's too hard to face. And I'm not saying one or the other one, it's better. It's just, what do you decide to do with those circumstances that you have at hand? And I feel that in the past 5 years or so that we have really seen how sick and how wounded our society is, the more prone we are to be pushed to be broken open, because it's heartbreaking to see what's happening out there. And this is where we're faced with our truth of like, what do I want to do about this? Do I want to just keep blinding myself? Or do I want to get super, super uncomfortable and start changing, be part of the movement of changing society?
Some people just get comfortable being uncomfortable too, or they say addicted to pain. Mm-hmm. We're a pain society, or we have pain points. And I think that we're sort of comfortable living in that space to where it's become a system in itself. So when are we going against ourselves and again, not growing or not growing at sort of a rate we should be because we're living in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So I feel like there's no place to be fully comfortable if you're being honest with yourself. There's like the comfort zone that is like a lying to yourself type of comfort zone because it's the known, but there's something deep down in you that's telling you, I want more. So it's a comfort zone that's keeping you safe and stable, but most likely it's not fully aligning with what you want to do in life or what the cravings of your heart want to fulfill. And there is the very uncomfortable zone of like daring to do things differently, to be the disruptor, to do things differently in your life. And at the same time, it's very fulfilling because you feel that you're doing it for the right reasons. You're connected with your purpose. So it's uncomfortable. It's super hard. It requires risk and uncertainty. But there's a very strong reason in your heart and in your mind of why you're doing it. So it makes it already worth it.
So for people out there that are feeling a little bit blasé, or they're feeling that they want to disrupt, they want to change something within them, they're stagnant, they're not reaching that growth potential within themselves, and they want to change their own paradigm so that they can then contribute to the greater good, where should they start?
Well, that's a big question, I would say. And there's no right answer. I can speak about it from my experience and the place where I'm at in my life. And I think the first place I would say is self-knowledge. We underestimate how much we don't know ourselves. We know ourselves through the lenses of people that have told us who we are, like our family, our parents, our caretakers, our teachers, our friends. And that's why we seek so much external validation. And then we start believing that story of like what people have told us through the years of who we are. But if you're feeling that that story is incomplete, or that there's something wrong with that story because you feel it in your heart, in your system, that there's more to it, go within and start learning more about who you are. And there's plenty of different ways of doing that. You can start by psychotherapy, or you can sign up to a theater class, or you can start doing yoga, or you can find a support group that have similar experiences than you have for healing certain aspects of yourself that have created addiction, or that have created illnesses, or that have created patterns of like mistreating yourself. Of that you have been abused. There can be many things. So I feel like follow the path that you've been pulled towards. I feel like there have been many different ways where people have experienced themselves, and there's no like a perfect recipe. But one thing that I do believe that you need to have to start this self-knowledge path is to get curious about it and be willing to get uncomfortable and be willing to experiment. So maybe you start by deciding, I want to go to a music bath, a music healing session. Awesome, go and then reflect back. How did that feel for you? Is this something that you want to keep doing? Was it too triggering? Was it dull? Or was it the most inspirational session that you had? Okay. Based on that experience, you decide the next step. And then you decide the next step. But it's about listening to yourself, which that in itself is already super uncomfortable because you have to believe in yourself in ways that probably you have never had to. But the only person that needs to be present in this self-knowledge journey is yourself. So I am a curious person. I'm super inquisitive. So I have tried countless of different ways of knowing myself. So I think that I am an exploring in different disciplines, and that has helped me a lot. But I know that that's not the case for many people because there are people that are less prone to experiment than I am. So maybe for some people, it's better to start listening to stories of people that have gone through that. So maybe you want to listen to a podcast, or maybe you want to watch a movie. So, but just start somewhere and go step by step.
Yeah, and it's such a journey in life. I think that, life is not perfectly easy all the time. It ebbs and flows, but to sort of embrace this journey and try to really connect with the journey you're on and, be an active participant in your own journey of life rather than sort of mindlessly moving through it. Mm-hmm. I think we are so embedded by all these narratives for so long. I feel like it takes half your life sometimes to just get through all the narratives on top of you, but that's okay. I think if you have an awareness that these narratives are there and you're sort of like, staying in that awareness, even if you have moments that are difficult or the journey, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but like staying close to that awareness, even in those harder times, it like kind of keeps you on that track.
No, and I love that you're bringing again the word of awareness, because like you cannot have awareness without self-knowledge. Like they come together. The more that you dare to explore yourself in different ways and learn more about who you are, the more aware you become about those stories, about those narratives, about those old paradigms. I think that awareness cannot happen without knowledge.
So Twisted Connection, where did the name Twisted Connection come from?
Yes, it comes from many different places. I think that the play of the two words represent the essence of my business in terms of like, there's an essence of disruption, which is the twisted. And that's an essence of building something more meaningful, which is connection. So a lot of what I want to do through my programs and the events and workshops that I design is to invite people to recognize those old paradigms and dare to build new ones by learning different perspectives. And to me, that's how you twist your brain, how you're very used to seeing and understanding things from one place and why one framework or one understanding of the world. And then suddenly you learn there's something else that can explain that same reality or that same challenge or circumstance. And I feel that that's when our brains and our mind is like, wait a minute, what are you saying? Say more. Or you start maybe resisting it because it's threatening to your identity or to your understanding of the truth, maybe. But I think there's something that happens in our brains that is like a new door opens. And it's like, you get a bit confused, and then it's like, okay, say more, and then it's like an expansion, and you can see things from a wider perspective now, and then you choose what you want to stick with, and if it makes sense or not. But it's just there's something else out there that you didn't know it was possible, or that it existed as a framework, a language, a theory, you name it. So that's the twisted, and I always call it like the aha moments. You need to twist your brain to get an aha moment.
Mm-hmm. I love aha moments.
They're really
the best.
Show
like,
you
ding,
how.
Ding. Oh, yeah, I get it now.
Exactly, and for me, because of my personality, I find them so refreshing because like there's always something new to learn, and that's also part of the essence of my business. And connection is because you need to connect with yourself, as we have been talking, like connecting with your inner truth of like, who are you? What do you want to do in life? What is your purpose? And then connecting with others. I feel like organizations need so deeply to learn how to change the way that we relate to each other to actually build something meaningful. And it needs to come from a place of connection and not from a place of transactional, you're the employee, I am the boss, this is your responsibilities, and these are your tasks to do, which is, of course, very important because that's the structure that makes the system functionable. But that doesn't have to be in a way that it's detrimental to your well-being. That can happen from a place of connecting with the heart, with the other ones that are working with you.
So your work is mostly focused on the system of a corporation or an organization.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would say organization. I understand the word organization as people coming together for a common purpose. And I want to work with the organizations that have a common purpose that is about bringing change to the world. So positive impact, that being social impact or environmental impact, and they can have different ways of organizing. That can be in the shape and form of a company. That can be in the shape and form of a early created startup, or that can be in the shape and form of a nonprofit or an association. But to me, what's most important is the spirit and the purpose behind the organization and what people really want to accomplish.
I think you hit on essence, or sort of the intention behind that organization. And I think I always think about like company values or the mission statement. I feel like they're used in a very flippant way. People just say, oh, this is what our company stands for. But are the people really aligned sort of in that same energy space when they're attached to that mission?
Yes, totally. And I feel like we are being led to a place in society that we need to go deeper in how we operate if we're really committed to bring about change, because we have been used to this more corporate world, or like even organizations in philanthropy as well, in the different and governmental entities too, where we're not really being held accountable for what we say and what we do. And I feel like we just say things and we propose stories and narratives and branding and marketing that sounds super appealing and maybe connect a little bit with our emotions and our hearts. But then it's very heartbreaking again when we see that all of that is mind my language, because they just want to pretend to be something. And there's also why we have so much greenwashing of like corporations, organizations pretending that they are committed to sustainability and trying to supposedly align with the climate change global agenda, or like even philanthropic organizations that supposedly want to bring about social justice. But when you see how they do things and how they make decisions and the lenses through which they understand the problems, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So it stays in the words and in the pretending, and the intention even might be in the right place from the statement point of view, but from the acting point of view, is not really there.
Yeah, it's like building a house without a foundation. It's just going to crumble unless, and that goes back to, again, I believe sort of on the individual level about getting that healthy. And I have this sort of belief system that, you know, we need to reconstitute what the education system looks like and infiltrate a life class, you know, but even deeper than that is about an interrelating type of class and an intention type of class. Just a way of like creating sort of this health system from the core level, which sounds like a lot of what you do in your work. Because I feel like our learning system has some holes. It needs to evolve. Do you sort of have the same sentiment, or what are your thoughts around that?
100%, and I feel like you just hit on the right spot in terms of the main thing that I'm trying to achieve. It's doing programs and curating, creating, designing spaces where we can learn together. To me, learning is the most important thing. If maybe after love, learning comes in terms of my values, because I do believe our education system is broken. And as adults, when we start doing this inner work or this personal, more intentional development journey, we need to re-educate ourselves. We need to unlearn, we need to learn, and we need to relearn to be able to operate and behave from a different place. And we're very bad at it because it shakes our identity and it's vulnerable and it gets personal. And because of how society is shaped and what is expected from us, we need to have all the answers, and it's not possible not to not know. And then we need to validate ourselves, and we need to show who we are always from a position of strength. Because if you show that you're weak, then you are not worth it. And I definitely think that we need to change the way how education is understood. And I know there are many beautiful projects out there of people trying to change the education system for kids, for teenagers, ideally to start in very early stages, and how we understand education and how we need each other to educate ourselves and how we learn as a collective. And my space to do that is in the organization world with more like people that are creating businesses or creating organizations that want to be part of the systems change movement. And I want to bring experiences of learning, of like kind of like reconnecting with our inner children or the joyful aspect of who we are, and normalizing that we need to get vulnerable, we need to get messy, we need to be able to open our minds to understand things differently, and then to bring those very complex solutions to very complex problems. And so emphasizing a lot the learning and also the development, because it is funny because oftentimes when I talk and I pitch my business, people are like, okay, you work in learning and development, but what is that? And it's okay, I'm here for it. I explain it and I'm changing the ways of how I explain it. But what has been very amazing for me is that we don't even understand the words when they're being said. I mean, if I'm in the HR world, people that do the same type of work that I do, I mean, it's super easy. They understand me. But when people have never been in contact with this type of work of like leadership development and team co-creation and team building, they find these words so strange when it's at the core of the essence of who we are. So whenever we want to do something new, like doing something that it's innovative, like doing social innovation projects, we need to learn. We need to start reading new theories or knowledge or gathering evidence or so many other things that are expanding our understanding of the status quo. And we do this learning because we want to get from point A to point B, and point B being the actions that are transformational. But the space in between is the development. And organizations, oftentimes in the paradigm that we're at, they feel that happens overnight. So they expect people that do the work that I do in learning and development to come to do one training, 2-day team building where people have fun and they connect. But then they go into business as usual. And most of the times, whatever happened in that 2 days, 1 day, it's lost. Or even it becomes counterproductive because it's like you pretended to be something during those 2 days. And now we're back into doing the same thing. So where is the commitment? And are you lying to me? So people are not stupid. People can add 1 + 1 and realize that they're being lied to and try to be manipulated. So a big part of what I want to do is to emphasize the development side of things, which require time. And that means having a lot of conversations, bringing different resources and what people need to incorporate the new learning into their day-to-days, which oftentimes requires getting uncomfortable because you need to disrupt the way how you do things and start doing it in a different way, and you're going to fail. And then you need to understand why did you fail, and then you need to try again. And it's an ongoing practice, and maybe in 6 months from now, you're going to start looking at some of the results of that effort. So it requires patience.
Oh gosh, yes. You think about these companies and they're moving so quickly. They're very numbers driven, results driven, like you were saying, get from A to B. And that's the paradigm that we have been living in for so long. And I think getting in touch on a more vulnerable level, going into intention, tapping into that creativity. I think people know on some level that we need to be shifting and we're taking steps to shift. But the issue is the vulnerability is really intimidating for so many people, just on a personal level. So how would you navigate that, especially in an organizational level?
I don't think there's a straight answer in terms of like a perfect recipe to do that. How I am trying to do it and the intention behind my work is going back to the foundations of building the relationship. We don't feel safe oftentimes, most of the times, in the organizations that we belong to because we are being judged, we are being measured by very high performance expectations, and it's kind of like survival. If we don't do what is expected from us, we're going to have a low performance. More likely we're not going to get a raise, or we're going to get fired or laid off, or I'm not going to get the promotion that I have. So if we go deeper into the understanding of what that comes from, I believe, from what I have been reflecting and studying, that in society, we connect our understanding of our identity. We give worth and value to who we are as human beings based on that recognition of who we are at work. And I feel that that is not being openly attended to. Like, most of the times, people want to be successful and that they want to climb that ladder of success because there's something deeper that within themselves that is leading them there. Like, yeah, of course, probably they want to have success and they want to have money, but what's behind that, And I'm not saying that we need necessarily to give therapy to everyone, but we need to learn to be more honest with each other and with ourselves. So my approach so far has been, of course, first sensing the reality of the organization, because not every organization is ready to do this, regardless of what they say. Sometimes they pretend that they do want to get deeper into doing more humanistic approach of working and well-being. And then when they realize what it takes, they don't do the work. And then sometimes they use you as the consultant as a pawn to pretend to be doing it. Or they just put a lot of roadblocks and then it gets impossible to work with them. And so I do that. I start with having a really open-hearted conversation of like, what are the challenges that you have? What is it that you're expecting? And I have this ability of like sensing people and understanding where they're coming from. I have highly intuitive abilities to do that. And at the same time, I have a lot of experience working with organizations. So I understand how they operate. And I mix these two things to really dig deeper. And I ask a lot of questions. And I try to get as personal as possible without the person feeling that they need to open up to things that they're not ready to share. And then I say, okay, this is possible with them or this is not possible with them. At least the minimum circumstances to engage into a transformative program. And then there's a lot of communication and building that trust. So as I was saying before, people don't feel safe in most of the times in the organizations that they work in. So how are you even going to remotely open yourself to be vulnerable if you're going to be maybe bullied, or you're going to be punished by that, or you're going to be outcasted by that? So there's a lot of work in building that trust, which is communication, which is getting to know each other as a team, having open-hearted conversations. And then maybe when you start shedding some of those layers, then you can start getting into some vulnerable places. And I know there are organizations that are doing it very well in the sense of like having the intention, as you said before, they set the mission, they have the values, and they really put a lot of effort into building that culture. And regardless of that effort, it's still hard. We're talking about humans and human relationships, and it's not like you can just set the intention and start doing things and then voila, you have it. So I'm also very happy to work with those organizations that already have a great environment in place, but they still face those challenges because it's what happens. The environment changes, the type of challenges that they face changes, and the circumstances that they have to face change because we are in an ever-changing world, even faster than ever. So this is going to continuously be something that team's going to have to deal with.
I've noticed there's a lack of mentorship in terms of leading people to step into their authentic self at work. What are your thoughts around that? Is that where, third parties like yourself come in to kind of aid with that? Or how could organizations get better at fostering an authentic self at work?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many ways that need to be done for that to be possible. And I'm going to talk about maybe the social innovation space that I'm at, because I understand what you say about corporations. I worked many years with corporates, and there's so many things that I can say about that. But because I feel like the systems change is going to come from a different place. I'm going to speak from social innovation. And as I mentioned before, social innovation can happen in a corporate, and it's already happening. I think there are some corporations that are running social innovation projects, entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship projects from within, or they have innovation hubs. So, but I'm going to talk about the spirit of social innovation and what it requires to bring that authentic self and actually build the structures and the resources that are needed for that. So to me, the main thing is, as we have talked before, the intention and the commitment. So if you are an organization or you are a leader, a founder of a startup, that you say, I am a social innovator, I am working towards bringing change to the world because my business is about social impact or environmental impact, that's already a great place to start, because that's your commitment and that's probably you're in alignment with your purpose. And then it's like, how do you want to feel in doing that? Because I think this is where the big disconnection exists right now. And this is what the main angle of my business, what I'm trying to attend to, is like, you have this amazing vision and you have the purpose of creating good in the world. But then the way how you operate as a team internally, it feels like the old paradigm. So it gets a lot of confusion, and it's very inconsistent or out of alignment when you have this narrative internally where you say, like, we're committed to bring about change, we're disrupting this system, or we're changing the status quo. And the way what you do in terms of your product, of your service, speaks to that. But then people don't really feel comfortable or safe, or that they can express themselves fully internally, and that the same power dynamic or very top-down hierarchies are still there, or the same sense of like, I'm going to punish you if you fail or if you make a mistake exist. And that is the core of what I want to tackle. And I feel that, again, we go back to this conversation of vulnerability. I think you cannot be fully authentic if you're not willing to get vulnerable. And you cannot be fully vulnerable if you're not in an environment that enables that. So as I said before, I see organizations as systems. So when I talk to potential clients or collaborators or partners, I say, like, we need to start understanding organizations as systems. So we need to see how whatever program we design, it tackles the three layers that I call the individual layer, the team layer, and the organizational layer. So the organizational layer to me is the environment. So how you create that enabling environment, and then you can understand that as the organizational culture and the structures, policies, and different practices or rules that are in place. So everybody understands what's happening, and a lot of the code of conduct or the values, the mission, that creates the structure and the different circumstances, conditions that the organization embodies. Let's say. Then you have the team. This is the next layer. And this is how we as a collective, it can be a small team, it can be 10 people, it can be 20 people. Usually if it's a larger organization of 100 people or 500 people, I start with the leadership team, because like leaders embody the example of what they want the organization to be. That's supposedly how it should be, in my opinion. And now in the team, then how do we work together? What rituals, routines, way of communicating, ways of organizing in terms of roles and responsibilities do we need? So we, as a team, we can align and that we can be in sync towards achieving that mission, that purpose, those organizational goals. And then you have the individual. So you can only be part of a team that can be aligned if you yourself show up as an individual. Because I see a lot of the mistakes that organizations and teams do is that they see one of the layers and they don't see the interconnectedness of them. And especially in teams, like they get very frustrated because they have done a lot of this work of like putting routines in place, trying a lot in the ways of how could they communicate, but they don't attend to the individual side of things. So every person that is part of that team, they have a responsibility. And that's why I call the self-leadership. And we go back to the self-knowledge that we were talking before, and the awareness of who you are and what do you bring into that collective. So you can be part of an amazing team that is doing a lot, but if you're not being fully understood, or that your needs are not being met, or that there are things that don't match your way of operating because you need something different, then it's going to be very hard for you to get in sync with that team. But then you individually have the responsibility for voicing that. I think that human beings, we sometimes think, probably most of the times unconsciously, that people can read our minds. And then I'm expecting you to know, especially if we're talking about leaders, I'm expecting my leader to know what I need and what they should give me. And oftentimes, leaders need to put an effort into getting to know their team players. But then me as a team player, I also have the responsibility, as I've said before, like to tell them, because we're human beings. We cannot see everything. We all have our blind spots and have our own way and perspective of doing things. So I need to tell my leaders, like, hey, this is what's happening with me right now. This is what situation is triggering me. Of this is why I'm struggling with bringing the results that I promised that I was going to bring. So that's the individual responsibility. And I feel when you start interconnecting these three layers and understanding how they come at play, you can be even more intentional in how you work internally, so people can feel more comfortable. And the more comfortable they feel, the more authentic that they can show who they are. And I feel like that individual component is key, because even if you have the enabling circumstances and conditions in the environment and in the team, if you don't know yourself and what you need, you don't know who are you authentically. That's like a very existential question, right? If someone would ask you, who are you authentically? And you don't have the answer. Maybe that answer changes through the years. That's great, because we evolve. I was going to
say, a lot of people just don't feel even ready or brave enough, or have stepped into themselves enough to have that vulnerable conversation or that authentic question. So what do leaders, or what do we need to set in that paradigm to foster someone into their individual growth?
There's a really interesting framework that I learned a while back of like how leadership can be seen from a transactional or relational perspective, or a mix of both. And a mix of both is what makes it transformational. So if you're a leader and you're only focusing on the transactional being, you are the employee, I am your boss, you have these responsibilities, and it's task oriented. So we relate because you have some tasks to perform, and I'm here to follow up on your performance. And that's one layer of relationship, which is transactional. Then you have more the relational layer or aspect of leadership, which is, I don't care about what you're doing, I care about you as a person. So I learn to get to know you. What are your interests? What makes you tick? What makes you feel motivated and enthusiastic about the work that you do? What do you need to feel heard and seen? And I would do to the best of my abilities to bring those components to our workplace and our relationship, so you can feel safe. But if you only focus on that, then you don't know about the performance. Maybe you just become really good friends, but that doesn't mean that you might be delivering to the levels of performance that you need that person to deliver. And then you bring the both of them. You have the two sides, and then that's where the magic happens, and where there's no recipe. This is where you have the ability to bring your authentic leadership of like, how much do I spend building the relational aspect, and how much do I need this person to focus on the tasks so they can deliver in a way that brings transformative action.
Okay. So you obviously bring a lot of your experience with Reiki, energy, and healing into the work you do with Twisted Connection. Where did your love for Reiki energy begin?
Yeah. So I've been experimenting and experiencing my connection with energy for a while now, but this bringing energies into the work that I do is quite new. And I'm still experimenting and seeing how people respond to that. I truly believe that it's needed, and I'm still trying to see how open people are willing to include that as part of the programs. And my love for Reiki and energies came as a result of my own exploration. As I was saying before, I was sharing with you, I'm a very inquisitive person, and I want to know the answers of things. And I wanted to know the answers about myself, about so many things I had with me that I wanted to both release and let go, and also a lot of things that I knew I had within me that were key part of my essence, but I didn't know how to express them. And it was around 8 years back when I moved to Chile. I moved to Chile for work, but it was a very transformational part of my life, experience in my life, because there's where I connected with meditation and with Reiki energies. I found someone that she has been my mentor through all of this year. I owe her my spiritual awakening. I owe her the connection to something bigger than me, higher, that gave me a purpose. So she basically taught me how to meditate, and she taught me how to connect with my energy, and she introduced me the power of Reiki as a healing practice and a self-knowledge practice to raise my own awareness. And I started learning to be a Reiki practitioner 3 years ago. And it was then end of last year that I completed the mastery level, which is the last one. When you become a master in Reiki, it's when you have a very open channel to bring more of those energies when you're doing the session with a client. And also you can initiate other people. So you can teach other people how to connect with energies, with Reiki energies.
Do you see the future of work and also the infiltration of these paradigms to incorporate more things like Reiki or more energy discussions in the future?
100%. And I can already see it and feel it and experience it. And everyone from their own perspective and experience, right? I have friends and colleagues that in their own way I already bring in that. So the way how I see it is that the old paradigm is the business world, the capitalistic economic political system that has brought everything that we're seeing today as one separate entity piece of society. And then you have the spiritual world, which is a lot of where healing was happening and a lot of manipulation too. There's a lot of darkness behind spirituality as well as its own entity. And I feel like many of us were kind of like divided. Like we had the personality and the person that was going to the business world. And then we had the personality and the person that was going for the spiritual world to find something that they couldn't find in the business world. Some people were only in spirituality because that was how they made sense of the world and that's all what they needed. Some people are only in the business world. And I feel like now these two worlds are coming together. And the people that we had one foot in each one, we're trying to integrate them. And we don't know fully how, but we are doing the effort of finding the way, because the business world needs more spirituality, and the spirituality needs a lot more of we're on earth, we're incarnated, we're in the material world, so we cannot just isolate and live in a small, we could, but that hasn't worked so far, of having like a lot of isolation of people being in a place where they don't really experience what's out there. And as I have always said, you choose where you want to be. But what I believe, and when I've seen other people around me that believe the same thing, is how can we bring these two worlds together? And to me, bringing this world together is bringing the understanding of energies and how we are energetic entities, we are energetic beings, and what does that mean to connect with that, and how to bring that into how we create the ways of organizing in this world to create material production, products, services, you name it. And another thing that I want to mention is that we're not only energetic beings, we need to understand our human technology in terms of how our bodies work. There's a lot of people working in somatics and understanding our nervous system and understanding what our bodies need from us for our energy to actually be used in a wise way. And I mentioned burnout before, and that was also a result of that, because we don't connect with our bodies. What is our bodies, physical bodies, telling us? And then we also have the emotional body. We have emotions, like the old paradigm led us to believe that to survive in the business world, we cannot have emotions because that's not allowed there. because it's too complicated, because we need the mind, we need the production system, we need the people delivering, the ones that are machines, production machines, to bring us the money. And we need to bring emotional awareness into our relationship, because relationships are emotional. We are emotional beings as well. And then also changing the way how we understand our minds. Our minds can be very scary places, and we have given too much attention to our minds as the only way to build a world, which, again, I don't have to say much. You can just watch the news to see where that has brought us.
So if you were to say to anyone just simply one thing that they can take away in terms of systems change, changing their own internal system and then changing the broader system, what would it be?
I think like the first thing I would say is get curious. Be childlike curious. Be childlike curious with the responsibility of an adult. So you don't believe everything that you're being told. There are a lot of narratives and stories out there that we take as truths. So get curious, learn, discern, use your critical thinking, and then choose with what you want to stay with. And hopefully that you stay with is authentic to who you are, and then build something beautiful from that place.
Build something beautiful. Thank you so much for sitting with me today and chatting a little bit about the heart space and energy and systems change. I learned so much today, and I know everybody else has as well. And I look forward to seeing your business and also your Reiki continue to grow.
Thank you so much, Holly, for having me. It was a joy to sit here with you. Thank you for giving me the space to express myself.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Manuela today, where we discussed systems change. If you liked it as much as I did, please press like and subscribe. I'm a brand new podcaster, and I appreciate your support.